Hey everyone, and welcome back to another episode of the Lifestyle Lifter Show. Today delighted to be joined by Stephen Campolo. Stephen is a world-renowned fat loss coach, he's an author, and he's also a celebrity trainer. Stephen, welcome to the Lifestyle Lifter Show. Thanks for
What's up,
being
Adrian? Thanks for
here.
having me, man. I'm excited to do this with you.
Good to have you on, my man. And the first question I always ask every guest before you actually dive into your backstory so we can learn a bit more about yourself, Stephen. Share something about yourself that most people do not know.
Most people don't know. That's a good question. I'm very big into playing tennis. So like a lot of people look at me and they think I'm just like a fitness guy that lifts weights all the time. But um, I just love athletics. I love like tennis. I love like Muay Thai, MMA training. So as I've gotten older and got more involved in fitness, I've kind of like just differentiated myself into different modalities of fitness, not just like meathead training, weight training, but also just like using my body and for more functional
Functional
activities.
ways.
So I'm very
Yes.
big into playing tennis. I'm a huge like tennis player. Play 4 or 5 days a week. I'm currently nursing a shoulder surgery that we talked about before we got on the call, but
Yeah.
since it's healed, hoping to get back into it. So yeah, I guess just tennis. I don't know, something different.
You like tennis, man. That's your
Yeah,
that's your added cardio and steps in there on top of
it
the
is, man.
gym.
It's
So
great cardio. Yeah.
it's much funner than running on a treadmill or going for a
Yes.
10K run, bro.
Yes, it is.
Awesome.
Yeah.
So, Stephen, I'd love to learn a bit more about your backstory. I mean, you refer to yourself as a quote unquote a former fat kid who was
Mhm.
100 pounds overweight. So tell us just how this all started in your individual journey, Stephen. Let's rewind the clocks all the way back to the beginning.
Yeah. I mean, I grew up on Long Island, New York, and I just grew up, normal family in an Italian home. As most people know, Italians is like food's a very big part of the culture, right? So pasta, a lot of heavy carb dishes, a lot of high calorie foods, and when you're a kid, you don't realize you're gaining weight or putting on weight, right? There's really no like repercussions with it. So, by the time you're like 12, 13, 14, start going through puberty, you're like, oh crap, like I'm getting made fun of, I'm getting bullied, I'm not really able to perform well on the sports teams. Like now your weight kind of starts to have like consequences associated with it. But yeah, I mean, I was 100 pounds overweight by the time I was like 14, 15 years old. So that's what led
Wow.
me to, kind of come to the realization like, all right, like I got to do something about this or I'm going to be the fat guy forever, which, wasn't an option for me. So started
And
my, yeah.
sorry to cut across. Well, I was just going to wonder what was the switch that flicked for you that said you got to make this change?
I think I was just tired of it. I mean, like I always tell people, you're not going to make a change until you're actually ready to do it. I don't care if people force you to do it or tell you to do something. Like oftentimes that makes the situation worse. I wasn't ready to do it until I started to realize like my weight had consequences associated with it. Like, if I wanted to date a girl or, ask a girl out, well, I'm the fat kid or the fat guy, right? So it's like no one wants to be with the fat guy. So, or even like going out for the sporting teams in high school, you're at that age now where it's like you have to compete for the teams. You can't just sign up and play, right? Like that, they're actually picking you based on your skill level, right? Well, if you're fat, you're not going to get the spot. So just going into like that ninth grade, I'm like, all right, like this is starting to hurt me now. It's no longer like how I look, but now like there's consequences associated with being fat. So that's what made me realize like, all right, like something has to change or I'm going to be stuck the next 4 years in high school and be miserable.
Sure. Yeah. I was the opposite, Stephen. I was the skinny fit the skinny kid in school who I would have been, relatively talented, middle of the road kind of player. There was nothing special about me, but I would have been athletic, I would have been able to move. But obviously, as you get older, strength does become more important. And that was just something that I had completely neglected altogether. So I was on the opposite end of the spectrum. And tell me so, Stephen. So you reached the point where you are a teenager, you're 100 pounds overweight. What was your process for actually losing the weight?
So you have to realize like I'm going to be 35 next month. I started this journey almost 20 years ago when I was like 14, 15, right?
Yeah.
So back then you're talking about like 2003, 2004. So there was no Facebook, there was no Instagram, there was no YouTube. Um, I don't even remember if there was Google. I'm sure Google was around, but like it wasn't like it is today, right? Like for information. So I didn't really have any knowledge on how to lose weight. Like there were bodybuilding magazines that I would buy or see at the grocery store. But as you know, like a lot of the information in there is just like super just exaggerated or crazy. So all I really knew to do was like, all right, well, if you want to lose weight, you run, right? Running is a good thing. So I started running. I started eating like chicken and broccoli. Um, and that's really how it started. So I didn't know much about weight training. I didn't start weight training probably till like a year after I started my initial fat loss, journey. But initially, all I did was run and just try to eat as lean and clean as I possibly could, and that's really what helped me lose like the first 50 pounds like pretty quickly.
Sure. Okay, so running, eating this, and I guess then the fact that you saw results quite quickly, did that kind of motivate you then to keep going, or
Yeah, I think when you start losing weight, I mean, more so from other people, when other people are like, hey, like your face looks thinner, or hey, like you look skinnier, even though skinny is like a horrible word, but like back then, like that was great because I was fat, so skinny is better than fat. But yeah, I mean, just like positive reinforcement from other people that they were noticing it, like motivated me even more so.
Gotcha, gotcha. And I guess looking back on your journey, Stephen, as you mentioned, a lot of kind of misinformation out there at the time of bodybuilding magazine and so on. What were some of the challenges or some of the mistakes that you might have made initially on your own fat loss journey?
That's a good question. I didn't start weight training early enough, right? So
Sure.
I would actually, but again, like I didn't have the knowledge, so it's hard to say looking back. But knowing what I know now, like I would have started weight training, from day one. I would have eaten more food. Like I was really like starving myself and like severely under eating when I first started too. Um, so they're just like, little things that I just would have like started weight training, started eating a little bit more food. Like, like I would demonize carbs. I thought carbs were like the enemy, right? So I would, just strictly eat like chicken, broccoli, veggies.
Amen in that.
Yeah. So it wasn't very sustainable. I mean, I did it, I toughed it out, but like the long-term approach, like very unsustainable to do that. So I would have started following something more sustainable from the beginning.
Sure. Yeah. With that being said, though, I'm not sure what your thoughts are, but for some people, I feel an aggressive approach at the start. Now, obviously, if you're more educated, can actually work better in some ways because at least the instant gratification of seeing results gives them that added motivation to keep going. I know
Yeah.
it's not a perfect fit for everyone or a one size fits all. So, as you said, maybe a sustainable approach would have worked better for you. How long, I'm curious, Stephen, did it take you to lose all the weight so in total?
Uh, Probably like 10 months to a year, like roughly.
Wow.
So pretty quick.
Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah.
That's a lot. That's a lot of weight. Okay, gotcha. And so you kind of mentioned there some of the personal challenges that you underwent were like restricting your calories and so on. By what stage then did you start to actually start lifting weights and make it more sustainable? Was that after a year, 2 years, or what did that look like for you?
Yeah. So probably after a year, I started just like, becoming obsessed with like fitness and like seeing my body change. Right. So when you lose all that weight, then I had like a bunch of loose skin, so I'm like, all right, well, I thought by losing all the weight, I was going to be like more confident in myself or like have a body that I was proud of. Whereas like now I lost a lot of weight, but I had like a lot of like loose skin. So I was still like and super embarrassed to take off my shirt or like very uncomfortable in my own skin. So I'm like, all right, well, I got to do something about this, right? So that's what led me to like start looking into weight training. So I started, buying the muscle magazines. And around this time too, the Pumping Iron movie, they did like a re-release of it, right? So like they
Yeah.
did like a rebranding of it. And that DVD came out and my dad bought it for me. And after watching that, I was like, dude, I was hooked. Like it was incredible, right? To see like Arnold Schwarzenegger, like not as like an action star, but like looking back at him as like in the 70s when he was like this crazy bodybuilder, I'm like it was nuts to me, right? So um that's what really kind of motivated me to like start lifting weights, join a gym, start like doing the protein shakes and all of that stuff. So I would say that was probably like a year later after my like initial like weight loss start.
Unbelievable, unbelievable. And then so this obviously led to a passion, Stephen, and to
Yep.
do what you're currently doing today. So at what age did you decide that this isn't just something that I'm passionate about, but I actually want to make a career of it?
Yeah. So this is kind of accidental. Like I never planned on being an online coach. It was never something I ever wanted to do. When I was 17 years old, so my family moved down to Florida when I was like 16, 17, right? My dad got me a part-time job at Gold's Gym because he was a sales guy, so he sold Gold's Gym like their supplies. So he knew the manager there, so it was like, hey, my son loves weight training, you know, he would love to like work here. So they gave me a part-time job, like working the front desk.
Nice.
So I got to like meet all the trainers, and there was a professional bodybuilder that was a trainer there. So I got to, you know, meet him, talk with him, and he actually started coaching me, getting me ready for my first like teen bodybuilding show. So I did my first teen bodybuilding show when I was like 17 years old, and
Wow.
yeah,
Unbelievable, man.
so that was a great experience, but also like very stringent, very restrictive, you know, with the dieting, the cardio. Um, then I went to business school. So again, this is like 2006, 2007, right? So again, still no social media, no like real way to monetize. Like everyone who I talked to about owning a gym, they're like, don't do it. Horrible, like horrible business, right? So at this point, fitness wasn't what it is today, where you could have a multi-million-dollar business just, you know, from your phone, right?
Sure.
So I went to business school, thought I was going to get into real estate, you know, went to work in corporate America for a little while. Hated it. My mom got sick around this time. So one of my good friends who was a personal trainer, he's like, hey, why don't you come personal train for a little bit? You know, you love fitness. You can spend more time with your mom and, you know, just feel it out for the next year or so. Right. So I'm like, all right, that's a good idea. So I went back to personal training, did it for, you know, 2 years. And then slowly but surely, like this was when social media kind of started to like pick up a little bit, like around 2000, well, probably 2015, 16, right?
Sure.
So I started to just like post my thoughts and philosophies on Instagram, you know, what I thought was good information, and like slowly started growing a following while I was still personal training. So um, then I got a message from someone, a like business coach that said, hey, I'm having an event in California. Why don't you come out? I like your content. I think you know, might have like a lot of potential here. I didn't realize he was just like selling me on his stuff at the time, but I'm like, oh wow, this guy thinks I'm good. Like, cool, you know. And at the time I was broke, right? Personal trainers don't make a lot of money. I live in Florida, which is very seasonal. So like all my clients would come down from like January to May, then they'd go back up north to their second home. Right. So
Wow.
like all
Yeah.
my clients were like snowbirds, right? They're rich, you know,
Sure. Yeah.
they have second homes here. And then in summertime, I would like starve. I didn't have much money. So I got together whatever little bit of money I had. Jumped on a plane, went to California for a weekend, and sat down and like met this business coach, sat down with a bunch of other guys who I'm still friends with till today. And you know, just kind of hearing, like, I think a lot of times in life, like when you hear other people are doing it or making a business of it and like they're successful, it just kind of puts that little bit of like, wow, this is real. Like I could do this. It's not like a fairy tale thing where, you know, it's not real. Like I was able to talk to these guys and like absorb a lot of the things they're telling me. I'm like, wow, this is interesting. Like, so I left the weekend saying to myself, like, hey, this is something I'm going to do. Like, I'm going all in on like the online, you know, social media thing. Right. And that was like 2017. And that's kind of how it started.
And you haven't looked back since. Unbelievable, man. Yeah. And as you said though, like that's kind of for coaches like us sharing social proof that when
Yeah.
people see a testimonial or they see a photo or they know someone who's similar to them that has achieved body transformation, well, the immediate thought process is if they can do it, you know, why can't I? Why am I any different? Which you're not. And tell me then, Stephen, so obviously you've coached thousands of clients since. What are some of the common challenges or misconceptions people have around fat loss?
There's a lot. I think people just don't realize how much they're eating. You know, like when I have like clients like start like just like measuring how much they're eating or tracking calories, like they don't realize how much they're actually consuming, right? Like I'm just very big on data, like tracking data, right? Like looking at your habits, looking at your patterns. You know, most people are pretty decent Monday through Friday, but then the weekend they fall off track. But they don't think of it as falling off track. They're like, oh well, I just had a little bit more food on this day or a few drinks on this day. But it really throws off like their entire week, you know. Also to like the speed at which people want results, I think is like greatly like just off. Like I just had this conversation the other day with one of my newer clients. She's dropped up like 2 pounds a week for the last, you know, 5 weeks, right? So she's down 10 pounds in like about a month. I'm like, do you realize if you continue to drop this amount of weight in the next 6 months, you'll be down like 50 pounds, right? But she wants to be losing weight quicker. So sometimes like you have to like just change people's perspective and allow them to realize like you're not trying to just get in shape like a bodybuilder would. Like you're not just trying to look a certain way or be a certain weight on a certain date and then go back to your old habits. Like this is a lifelong journey, right? So who cares if it takes you 6 months or 3 months or a year to get to your goal? Like there really is no finish line anyway. You're trying to develop better habits, healthier habits, live longer, feel better, right? So I think like just the time frame or how quickly like people expect to lose weight, like that's something that I've really had to get good at. Like just having a conversation with clients and being like, hey, let's look back on the last few months. Like you were here, now you're here. You've come a long way. Even if you lose a pound a week for the next 52 weeks, that's 52 pounds in a year, right? So people just have to kind of like, people are sold a lot of BS online,
Manage their
unfortunately.
expectations.
Right?
Yeah.
Yeah. Like people see all the supplements, they see all these crazy programs like, hey, I lose 10 pounds in a day, lose, 20 pounds in a month. So people get these unrealistic expectations that like it's going to happen very quickly. And some people do, like some clients will lose 5 pounds or 7 pounds the first week, right? But it's not sustainable the rest of the time, like because they just went from eating garbage to now they're eating healthier and working out more. Like the body's going to drop pretty quickly. It doesn't always happen that way. But again, it's just managing people's expectations as far as like you didn't gain 50 pounds overnight. So why do you expect to lose 50 pounds overnight? Like it doesn't happen.
100%.
So
100%.
that's been a big part of just, what I've tried to do is help people just see that like it's a process. It's a journey and you have to be on board for the long term, not just a quick, 2 month or like 3 month fix.
The goal, yeah, just get out of that end game mentality. Like there
Mhm.
is no finish line. Behind mountains, there are always more mountains, and there's always more you can do. It's not
Yeah.
to say you shouldn't set tangible goals and some milestones for 1 month, 2 months, 3 months down the line. But once you just set the goal to be healthier, set the
Yep.
goal to be fitter without actually having like an end date or a a set point you want to achieve that by. Tell me then, Stephen, so you mentioned about one of the biggest challenges with a lot of the clients you work with, I'm the same, is that whole weekend warrior mentality that Monday through Friday, I eat pretty healthy. But then the weekends, I heard you actually, to quote you before, don't let your weekend be your weekend.
Yeah.
So, what are some practical strategies for anyone listening here who does fall into that bracket, Monday through Friday, pretty consistent, weekends, though, it just seems to go out the window?
Yeah. I mean, I'm very big on accountability, right? I mean, obviously being a coach, people are like, oh, well, you're a coach. Of course you're going to say that. But the truth is like, I'm a coach and I have a coach I work with even till today that I send to my photos. I send to my weight every week because accountability is the one thing that like changed my life years ago. And whenever I have accountability in my life, it keeps me on track, whether it's like a business coach, a health coach, a mindset coach, like coaches actually help you stay accountable, right? That's like their biggest job. So I think having accountability is really, really critical. Like having a Monday morning check-in or a weigh-in or something that in the back of your head, like, all right, I don't want to screw up this weekend because I don't want to have to explain to my coach or explain to my accountability partner like why my weight's up a pound or two this week, right? But also like if you don't have the resources to work with a coach, just planning ahead of time. Like if your weaknesses are on the weekend, if that's generally where you fall apart, then just plan for it. Give yourself like a treat meal on a Saturday night or a Sunday, but don't allow it to become like an entire, day or weekend where you're kind of just off the rails completely. Because again, one meal isn't going to hurt you, but if you allow it to become like 3 meals or just like an entire binge weekend, then you're going to be doing some harm to yourself, right? So accountability, I would say for sure, and then just planning things out, before the weekend even happens. This way you have a game plan, like get your workout in early, on Saturday morning, Sunday morning, like start your day on a positive note, because oftentimes when you do that, it puts you in a positive mindset for the rest of the weekend, the rest of the day. So just, just planning a little better is a huge thing too.
Absolutely. Yeah, that planning in advance is key. Or even like just cycling your calories during the week. You have a night out at the weekend. Maybe you might scale back your calories by 200 Monday through Friday. So you have an extra 1,000 there at least to calorie bank come Saturday. I'm a big fan of that, but I think a mistake, Stephen, a lot of people make, then I'd be curious to hear your thoughts on this, is it's not necessarily the night out, particularly if there's alcohol involved. It's the freaking day after, which is why I always recommend you schedule an activity for the Sunday morning if you are out on the Saturday night. even if it's just going for a coffee with a friend, going for a hike, going for a walk, because otherwise it's like, okay, you go for drinks on the Saturday evening, you might have a meal out as well. The meal out, it's very, very hard, as you know, nowadays to get a meal out for like 1,200 calories. And then you have the drinks, you're at like 25, 3,000 calories. Easy. Not that hard to drink that amount of calories. And then you have the fryer, the takeaway the following morning, the Oreos, the Wispas as well. So at least try schedule something in for the following day so you have something to keep you going.
Yeah. Yeah, I agree. A lot of times, like when you go out, and have a few drinks or like have a cheat meal the night before, like the next morning, you generally wake up feeling like crap. You feel maybe a little hungover, or you feel like just like bloated or sluggish. And a lot of times it's very easy to just say, you know what, like tomorrow's Monday, let me enjoy myself again today. Right. So like I'm very big on course correcting quickly, right? Like if you do allow yourself to have a meal like that on a Saturday night, which is completely fine. Like I advise to do it, but make sure the next day, like you're back on track. You're in the gym, you're, going for a walk, you're doing something active, and you don't allow that one meal to like derail you the entire next day, because that's, again, one meal is not going to hurt you, but if it's an entire day of just like overeating, then you probably just eliminated like all your hard work from the week prior, which is, like why bust your ass all week only to just eliminate all of that within one day. It's not worth it. So just being mindful of that, and yeah, doing something active the next day is a huge help.
Brilliant, brilliant. And so you share a lot of fat loss tips, Stephen, and you kind of mentioned a few there, like having accountability, having a bit of structure. What would you say are just two or three other underrated fat loss tips which you feel could potentially make a big difference in someone's life?
um Getting steps in is important, right? So just overall movement, like doesn't always have to be in the gym or, cardio, but just like overall movement, just being cognizant of like how much you're actually moving. Most people, especially today after, the pandemic 3 years ago, most people are working remotely. They're working from home. They're very sedentary. So even though a workout's going to help you, like a 30 to 45-minute workout is beneficial, you're still sitting for most of the day, right? So just being mindful of that and like moving your body more is always going to help you burn more calories. And then, like just knowing how much you're eating. Like if someone's never tracked their calories before, you don't have to do it forever. Like I know some people are like, oh gosh, like I don't want to have to track my calories. It sounds so tedious. I've been doing it myself for the past like 6 years, every single day. Like it takes me 2 seconds. Like it's super easy, right? So once you start doing it, like you realize how simple it is and how it only takes a minute, like a day to do it, but it gives you a lot of good insight into how much you're actually eating, right? Like to lose weight, got to be in a calorie deficit. Well, how do you know if you're in a calorie deficit? Most people don't, right? So the best way to know it is to actually track your food and see, okay, like I ate 2,000 calories today, or I ate 3,000, or I ate 1,500, right? So like just be mindful of how much you're eating. So if someone's never tracked their calories, I would say download MyFitnessPal. It's free, right? You don't have to upgrade to the premium version. There's a free version. Download it and just do it for a week. Like just enter everything you're eating in a week. This way you could see how much you're actually eating. And then when you have that information, then you can make changes to either eat less, to put you in a calorie deficit or whatnot. So, but fat loss is easy, man. Like I think, like especially my clients, they're actually shocked with how simple things are. I think people tend to overcomplicate things, and that's why like the fitness industry gets kind of a bad rap, because people think they have to do all these crazy things, or eat 6 small meals a day, or they have to do intermittent fasting, or they have to cut their carbs, or they have to do HIIT training, or they have to do this, like, you don't have to do any of that stuff. You really don't, right? It comes down to like work out 3 to 4 days a week, lift some weights, like eat healthy, get your protein in, be in a calorie deficit, get some steps in, drink your water, get some sleep, and that's it. You don't have to do things like crazy things. So
Yeah, oh, it's unbelievable, man. Absolutely. As to methods, I love the quote. As to methods, there are many, but principles are few. Understand the principles, you can choose your own methods. So whether that is intermittent fasting, whether that's doing keto, whether that's following a upper lower split, a push pull legs, they're all different methods. But once you understand the principles, you can actually follow through. And speaking of principles, just to segue slightly, Stephen, to actually training then. What are some of the current training principles that you yourself adhere to? I know, unfortunately, you're currently nursing a shoulder injury.
yeah, so I've always been big on weight training, right? Like I want to help build like help people build their body up and actually add lean muscle tissue while they're losing body fat, right? Like a big problem I had early on was I did way too much cardio, right? And I didn't lift weights. So I lost a lot of weight quickly, but then I had a lot of loose skin. Like I had a lot of like loose belly fat, or like a lot of loose skin on my chest. So lifting weights, especially with females too, is super critical if you want to like change your body composition, which is what most people want to do, right? Most people don't just want to lose weight. They want to change their body composition, which simply means building some muscle while losing the body fat, right? I used to be like huge into bodybuilding training, like 6-7 days a week, no days off. But as I've gotten older, I've realized that actually hurt me and didn't really help me, right? So like right now, I train, 4 days a week, right? Aside from like nursing a shoulder surgery, but like most days, or most weeks, I train 4 days a week. I hit all my body parts. I get my 10,000 steps in every single day. And that's really it. I follow more of like a push-pull legs, type of split. This way I'm hitting multiple muscle groups in each session. I don't do the whole like chest day, back day, arm day. Every once in a while, if I'm bored, if it's a Saturday morning and I just want to go work out because I'm bored, I'll go do the arms just for fun, But as long as I hit all 4 workouts in a week, like that's my minimum that I get in. And I don't do any more than that because again, overtraining too is like, if you're doing too much, you're not giving your body enough time to rest and recover, and you're not really going to see like any significant strength gains or, muscle gains either. Right. So there is a delicate like balance to just not overdoing it and, just kind of keeping things more moderate.
And what are some of the common mistakes then that you would see people typically make in the gym, Stephen?
I think taking too long, right? Like keeping their rest times too long. So maybe like doing a set, then resting like 5 minutes. I like to keep things short and sweet. I like to train for 45 minutes to an hour, like including my warm up. So I like to keep my rest period short, like 30 to 45 seconds in between sets, just to maximize like the calorie burn. Now, obviously, if you're power train or like powerlifting or training for strength, it's not optimal, right? So you're going to want longer rest periods. I'm just
depends
talking
on the lift, perhaps. Yeah.
And I'm just talking in the context of like fat loss. But just keeping things pretty intense, short and sweet while you're training. I mean, like I don't do anything like revolutionary or crazy when it comes to like to weight training. Like my philosophy has always been like get in, stimulate the muscle, and then get out. Like do 2 to 3 exercises per muscle group. Keep the rep ranges like relatively, not high, but like, 10 to 15 rep range, fatigue the muscle. And then, I don't go crazy heavy with weights anymore. Like it's just what people need to realize is like, when you were younger, you can go heavy and, get away with it. But as you get older, like you just want to be careful. You don't want to cause any injuries or do anything stupid. And you could actually maintain your physique with less weights than you used to build it too. Right. Like as I get older, I realize I don't have to kill myself with like, I haven't benched heavy in like years. I haven't squatted heavy in years. I don't do deadlifts anymore because my lower back is kind of messed up. But like what it took you to build your physique, you don't have to continue doing that to maintain your physique either. You can pull back a little bit, use lighter weights, just, create more time under tension, things like that. So like progressive overload comes in many different ways. It doesn't just mean increasing weight every single time. You could slow down the movement. You could shorten the rest periods. You can increase the time under tension. You can increase the rep range with the same weight, right? So there's just like different ways to stimulate the muscle and get just as good a result as you can by just increasing the weight continuously too.
100%, man. I love everything you said there. Particularly with progressive overload, because I fell into this bracket as well, Stephen. I was of the opinion that if I didn't up the weight from week to week, I didn't progress. But then, as you said, there's a lot of ways you can do it. Like, so you mentioned there your rest periods are 45 to 60 seconds. Well, let's just say someone listening is doing a set of deadlifts and you're gassed for 3 minutes after it before you can reset. And then you just notice that you can do the same amount of weight, same amount of volume with a 2 minute rest period. That is still a form of progression. It's showing that your cardio system has improved, that your efficiency is improved as well. So a lot of different ways there. One mistake that I made, Stephen, because you mentioned obviously now that you're getting that bit older, you don't lift as heavy. I used to always go into the gym and it would be testing strength versus building strength.
Yeah.
So, I might do bench press, I might do, I know you work in pounds, we operate here in kilos, like put a 60 on the bar, rep that out for a few, go up to 80, go up to 90, test the strength at 100, and that's the session done. It could be like 5 or 6 total actually working reps in 20 minutes. And then I'm wondering why my strength is slowly declining because I was testing my strength, not building my strength. That was a personal mistake that I made. I'm sure you can probably relate to some stage when you were younger,
Oh yeah.
Stephen.
Yeah. 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 I mean, but again, like this is part of learning, right? I mean,
Yeah.
it's like this is why I always tell someone like if you're just starting your journey, or even if you're, if you've been doing this for a while, but you're not seeing any significant like progress or results, then something has to change, right? Like you can't keep doing the same thing you've been doing for the last 5 years and your physique looks the same, your strength is the same. Like if that's the case, well, you're probably doing something wrong, right? So hire a trainer, hire a coach. This way you can make sure you're doing it the right way, and you don't have to continue on the cycle for years of like trying to figure out on your own, or trying to, like test a million things. Like find someone that knows what they're doing. They have the knowledge, they have the client results that show that they know what they're doing. Work with them for 3 months or 6 months, get all the knowledge you can from them, and then you can do it on your own for the rest of your life. So like it's, I think a lot of it's an ego thing too. People have an ego. They think they know everything. I was that way when I was younger too, but then I hired my first coach at 18 years old, and I was like, holy crap. Like I thought I knew how to train. And within the first workout, like my coach had me like throwing up, and we were training arms, like nothing crazy, but he was pushing me so hard and challenging me and challenging the muscle in a way I'd never been challenged before. And like, it made me nauseous to where I had to go to the bathroom. Right. So again, like you just don't know what you don't know. And the biggest indicator of that is if you look the same year after year and your weight never changes and you're still struggling with your physique or getting it to a certain place, then like suck up your ego and go find someone that could help you. That's the best way to fast track your results.
100%. Could not agree more. And not just in fitness, in any area, if you're like you need help with 100%. Just tell me, Stephen, we've a few final rapid fire before we wrap it up, but one or two other questions in the training. So I'm curious, is there anything you've changed your mind over personally since you started training yourself?
Is there anything I've changed my mind? I think, yeah, I mean, yeah, like less is more. I've had better results training 4 days a week with less volume versus training 6, 7 days a week with more volume, right? Like a lot of times you hear like if a muscle's not growing, just train it more and heavier. But like muscles grow during recovery, right?
Yeah.
So like unless you're on a bunch of drugs or taking a bunch of steroids, like most, I hate to say it, but like a lot of these younger guys are today, which I highly recommend against, then maybe you can get away with recovering quickly. For guys like me, like
Not sure.
I can't recover that quickly, right? So pulling back on the training and actually, being smarter with my lifts and just, feeling the muscle, having that like mind muscle connection has yielded me better results when it comes to fat loss and actual muscle gain than doing more and crushing my body and running it into the ground. And plus, like what a lot of people don't realize too is when you do more, you create more hunger, right? Like the more you drive your car, the more fuel your car needs. So the more you train and the more you move your body and the more run down your body is, like a lot of times your cravings and your hunger increases too, which people don't realize. So if you're trying to lose weight, but you want to train more, it's like you're kind of sometimes being counteractive with your goals, right? So you have to just pull back a little bit. And yeah, I know it's a long-winded answer, but doing less is oftentimes like more. It's going to yield you better results.
100%. Yeah, and just you mentioned there as well, the type of activity too. Like if you do excess cardio, for instance,
Yep.
you might burn an extra 300 calories, but we all
Yep.
know the feeling. After
Yep.
doing a run, even if it's only a 5K, a 10K, 30 minutes, your hunger for the rest of the day, it's really through the roof. Whereas if you spent that extra hour maybe walking, something more low intensity, steady state, sure, you might not burn as many calories during it, but you're not going to want to eat as many afterwards too, which in the long run of creating a calorie deficit is going to be more beneficial. Steve, absolutely, that is awesome. And tell me so, Stephen, just A few rapid fire before we finish up. What is one new habit that you have implemented in the last year?
I've I've gotten better with addressing my digestion issues. So like I had my gallbladder removed like 4 years ago, so I have to be like a little more careful with like the foods I eat, how much I'm eating at a time. So I guess like as far as a new habit, maybe just like doing lemon water in the morning. I've been very on top of that. So just doing certain things for my digestion and realizing like you know your digestion is just as important as like it's a huge part of your health, right? It's not just about weight training and eating healthy, but like your digestive system is a huge part of that. Your ability to absorb nutrients and allocate calories and things like that. So as far as a new habit, yeah, just paying closer attention to my digestion and just being more proactive with that.
Interesting. I really like that. I keep a written journal, Stephen, of how foods make me feel.
Mhm.
And I always just think ahead, like sometimes you can sacrifice short-term gratification for long-term gain, but if you just always think in advance, how will this food make me feel 20 minutes from now, 30 minutes from now? Often it's not worth the payoff of having that extra serving of whatever food it might be. I love
Yeah,
that, man.
yeah.
When you hear the word successful, Stephen, who is the first person that comes to mind?
Successful. Damn, these are good questions. I mean, it sounds kind of cliche, but like Elon Musk is just like I feel like the pinnacle of success. You look at a guy who accomplished everything, not just like financially, but like revolutionizes industries, the auto industry, the space industry, like uh, you know, um, like the guy does it all. So I don't know how he does it, but
Elon.
when I see someone like that, like it just makes me feel like inadequate with what I can. Man, this guy, he's literally changing the world, and he's only one person. Like me and him have the same amount of time in the day, So someone like that, like yeah, you gotta.
Yeah,
I don't care how you feel about the guy, like you gotta have respect for.
absolutely. 100%, bro. I'm with you on that one. If you could go back and give advice to your younger self, what exactly would you say, Stephen?
I would. It's funny knowing what I know now. I would have done things a lot differently. I would have planned better, knowing how technology and social media was going to trend. Um, but yeah, I would have just took things a little slower and just realized like sustainability is just as important as um, the modality you use to get there, right? It's like a lot of people want quick results, but oftentimes when you do things quickly, it backfires and you end up swinging the other way, right? So like especially with dieting or like fat loss, like the program you use to get there, you have to make sure it's sustainable and it's not something that's over restrictive or something that you're not going to be able to follow forever. Because if you're only going to follow this for 3 months and you're going to lose a bunch of weight and get in great shape, but you're not able to sustain it, then you're going to end up getting fat again, right? So just finding things that you can do forever, like a weight training plan you can follow forever, a diet plan you can follow forever, just doing things like slow is fast, right? Just doing things in a slow way will yield you better results long term versus trying to do things quick and then just being on the roller coaster of ups and downs.
Yeah, getting out of that end game mentality again. I love it. I love it. Alex Hormozy, I heard him say, if you can't do it for a day, don't try, or if you can't do it for a decade, don't do it for a day. Something similar along those lines there. Stephen, what do you think is the most underrated gym exercise that most people do not do enough of?
Most underrated exercise. Um, you see, it's funny because I don't really do like heavy compounds anymore, right? Like you always hear like your squats, deadlifts, bench, but talking like an old man now, like I kind of stay away from those things. I love leg press. I think leg press is like it's very safe. You're kind of locked in, so you don't really have the risk of like a squat or overloading your lower back. Your knees are pretty safe. They're not compromised. Your lower back is safe. I think as far as yielding the best results, like it's the one exercise you're gonna get stronger with your legs, build leg strength, build leg size. So I personally, and plus it's very like calorically demanding. You're
Yeah.
using like half your body to really press a good amount of weight. So me personally, I think one of the best exercises people should be doing is a good leg press, whether it's a machine or plate loaded or but yeah, some type of leg press.
Unbelievable. Yeah. Great one there. Great one there. Final of the rapid fire, Stephen. What is one question you wish that people asked you more of?
One question people ask more. I think probably just what you asked. Like, what would you do? Like what would you change? Like, looking back on when I first started, what would I change? Right?
Yeah.
Because you don't really get people that care about that. You get people that want quick results. So again, a big part of my coaching is like just sometimes having conversations with people or clients that have to kind of reframe their expectations as far as what's doable in a certain amount of time. So
What's
yeah, looking
possible?
back, like how I would do things differently is what I advise people to do now. So yeah.
Unbelievable. Stephen, this has been awesome. For anyone who wants to learn a bit more about yourself, Stephen, what you offer, where is the best place to send people?
Um, Probably like my Facebook or Instagram, Stephen Campolo, Stephen with the PH, and then Campolo, Campolo. Instagram for me has been kind of like, it's funny because it was a platform that I started off with and it was a great platform, and now things have kind of slowed down there. So I've transitioned to Facebook, and Facebook's been like blowing up for me over the last year. So Facebook is probably the
Awesome.
best spot. I post most of my content there, some stuff on Instagram, but yeah,
I,
those.
I'll link your IG and your Facebook in the show notes, Stephen. Stephen, final question. This is the Lifestyle Lifters show. So I'm just curious, what is your definition of living a successful lifestyle?
Just cultivating habits that make you a better person, right? For myself, I know working out makes me feel better about myself. It makes me have like more mental clarity. I feel more confident about not just physically, but like my overall outlook on life, right? When I eat healthy, I feel good. So cultivating habits that are going to put you in a healthy mindset and mind frame. I think mental health is a huge thing that isn't really talked about. And for a lot of people, like working out each day is a huge benefit for just your overall mental health, not just because you're looking better or feeling better, but also just like you're accomplishing something, right? So cultivating habits that are going to put you and allow you to be the best version of yourself. Like, I think that's what everyone wants, right? You want to live the optimal life that you can live. And when you don't live that, like up to that, you feel kind of crappy or anxious or depressed. So I think just knowing that, hey, if I do XYZ each day, like I'm going to get, a certain result. Might not be immediate, but over the long term, I'm going to be a better person for it. So just do the hard things. Like, people ask me, do the hard stuff. You could do it, but you just got to do it. I know you don't want to do it, but go do it anyway. And I promise you'll feel a lot better when you do it. Right. So do the hard crap. Don't be a little baby about it. Just go do it, and you'll be way ahead of the game. I promise you, in the next, few months, and then it will become a habit, and you don't even have to think about it anymore. It just becomes like, all right, I just go to the gym. It's what I do now. Right. There's no and if or buts about it. So, but getting started is the hardest part. If you're not doing it, you gotta start.
Hard decisions, easy life. Easy decisions, hard life.
That's
Unbelievable.
exactly what I preach, brother.
Yeah, Stephen, awesome. Thank you so much for coming on. This has been amazing. I really appreciate your time and great conversation.
Thank you, man. I had a fun time. Awesome. We'll do it again soon.
Awesome.